Thank you, Jim. Good morning, church. Oh, we're all excited. I just noticed that. That's abuse of a member.
I didn't do it. I was making sure she was okay.
One member hitting another, spreading out their blanket. You got witnesses, Christy. Good to see everyone this morning. We are grateful for you being here and being with us. It's good to see each and every one of you out. Hope that you've had a good week. If you haven't, come talk to me. We'll find some reason for you to have had a good week and have a good week this next week. If you noticed this morning, the songs, thank you, Jim, were on heaven. What a great subject that is. When you think about life and you think about what really warms the heart when subjects are mentioned, one of them is mother, right? That just when you bring that thought to mind of your mother, whether she be long since passed or whether you still have her, it just warms the heart when you think of mother. But then the second one is when you think of home. Home just becomes a place where you hang your hat, but it's where your stuff is. It's precious thoughts. It's memories of children and playing and all the money you've put into it. But it's a precious thought. But then the third most precious thought is that of heaven. When we think of heaven, our souls are filled, our hearts are warm. By just the thought, just the idea of thinking about heaven. Pomona, that we worked for 19 years with, we every fourth Sunday night of the month, we had singing night. And occasionally our song leader would say, okay, let's take requests this evening. And by and large, the largest number of those songs would be on the subject of heaven. It's just that which warms our hearts and that which just truly makes us feel at ease. Heaven is a wonderful place. The story is told of Glenn. Glenn went to see his father. His father was in a nursing home. Matter of fact, his father was dying. The doctors had said and the nurse had said, it's not going to be much time before your father is going to pass from this world. And so Glenn sat there. He held his father's hand. He looked at his father intently, and all of the things of the past and the things that he did with his father came to mind. He thought about the times that they had played in the yard. He thought about the games they had played in the house. He thought about the wisdom that his father had imparted to him. He thought about as he got a little older and how his father had to sort of give him that freedom and how all of that went and all of the conversations that they'd had and all the things that they had shared even since he had since moved out of the house and started his own family. And Glenn wondered if his father could hear him. And he said, Daddy, I love you. And with that, his father replied, I'll be waiting right inside the gates of heaven. That idea warms the heart and thrills the soul. And when you think about heaven, as the Bible talks about, you can't help but be uplifted because heaven is a place. It's real. But it's a place, first of all, that is reserved. We have a hard time with the idea of heaven. We like the topic itself. We have a hard time with heaven. And the reason being because it's not that which we use our senses. We can talk about it, but we can't taste it. We can't see it. We can't hear it. We can't touch it. And so from that idea, from that standpoint, we have a difficult time with heaven. We believe that it's real. We believe that it exists. But what do we do with it? We have to understand that place. But it's a place that's been reserved for you. It's vacation time. It's that time of year in which, we somehow or another, we at least go away for a few days. And when we do, we go to some place where we're going to stay. I've had people tell me, I've asked them, well, where are you going on vacation? And they say, I don't know. Well, what do you mean you don't know? Well, in the morning, I'm just going to get in the car, and just wherever I end up, that's where I'm going to be. And so I asked them that wonderful question. So when you get to the end of the driveway in the morning, which way are you going to turn? Well, I hadn't thought about it. Well, that's going to determine where you're going to end up. Oh, yeah. There's a reservation, though, that's been made. When Suzanne and I go leave out, we don't just leave out on happenstance. We know where we're headed, and we have reservations made. Why? Because when we get there, we want to know that when we get to the locale where we're going, we want to know where we can put our stuff. And that when it comes bedtime, where we can put our head and rest. And where it can ultimately be our home base for the time that we're going to be there. Heaven as a place that's reserved. 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 4. As we studied on Sunday nights recently, the book of 1 Peter, Peter talked about an inheritance, the uncorruptible, undefiled, faith not away, reserved in heaven for you. Heaven's been reserved for us. It's been reserved by Jesus. You remember, let not your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. I want you to know that heaven's been reserved for you. It's been reserved for you by Jesus Christ. The reservation has already been made. It's your decision on whether you'll take advantage of that reservation. It's your decision on whether you will say, I'm here. It's your decision based upon whether you will be the one that once you, if you will, allow me the freedom to check in. That says, come on in. We've been waiting for you. You see, the reservation's made. It's there. All you've got to do is take advantage of it. Heaven is a reserved place. But inasmuch as it is a reserved place, it is a place of rest. In Revelation chapter 14, John reminds us there in verse 12 of an interesting thought. He said, blessed are they that die in the Lord from henceforth, yes, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. That verse is a verse of comfort. That verse is a verse of reassurance. That verse is a verse of help. That verse is a verse that will calm even the most troubled soul if they'll think about it. Blessed, happy are they that die in the Lord. From beginning now till now, they may rest from their labors. But when we think of rest, what do we think of? We think of laying down. Did you have to get up earlier this Sunday morning than you've been getting up for the last 14 months? Because you had to come to Bible school? Or should I rephrase that? You got to come to Bible school? You think, okay, this afternoon, I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to rest. I'm going to lay down. Rest is a wonderful idea. But lest we get a little confused and say, well, rest in heaven, how are we going to do that? How are we going to rest in heaven? Doesn't John say in Revelation chapter 21 that or chapter 22 rather, verse 4, that his servants will serve him? And the answer is yes. You see, rest in heaven is a little different than rest here on earth. We talk about laying down. We talk about stretching out. We talk about getting in our favorite chair or laying in our bed. But rest in heaven is rest from our labors, rest from our toils, rest from the aches and pains that life besets us with, rest from the work that we've put in, 8 hours a day and 40 and 50 and 60 hours a week. Rest of having to worry about yard work and housework. Rest from the toils of this life. But being able to spend eternity serving the one that made you, serving the one that gave you everything that you had while here upon this earth, serving the one that is the utmost of utmost, who is the light not just of the world, but the light of heaven itself. Can you imagine? The singing was so beautiful this morning. Can you imagine eternity singing as you sit around the throne of God, singing His praises? We won't talk about I want to go to heaven, but we sing with the praise of God, and we sing maybe even of heaven, but we sing with the joy, not of heaven as a hope, but heaven as a reality. And so heaven then becomes our place of rest. It's a place reserved. It's a place of rest. It's a place of reward. It's a reward. What is a reward? A reward is that which is given to someone for something that they have done or accomplished, for something that they have assisted in or assisted with. Some would say, well then, preacher, you're saying, okay, I've earned this place. No, we will never, nor can we ever earn heaven. You can't earn it, I can't earn it, none of us can earn it. It's a gift. It's a gift given to us by God as we comply with His will, as we obey His commandments, as we do what He's told us to do. That's our promise. That not everyone that says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he that does the will of my Father which is in heaven. You see, there's a reward. Think about it. Let's think about it from a little different angle for a second. Imagine, if you will, that this is all there is. That once you breathe your last breath, once you sigh your last sigh, once they place you in Mother Earth, as some officiant says something over you for your final rites, or if you choose to be cremated, much of the same category. And let's say that was it. That's it. There's no more. You mean I went to church and I heard all of those sermons, I sang all of those songs, I tried to live a decent, good, moral, whole life when the world was having fun, I was practicing self-control and self-discipline, and there was really nothing to it. My faith was fake because it was nothing and there was nothing. Oh, no. We rejoice. We are glad because God has promised that according to 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 14, that if we will build our works upon that which is eternal, we have a home with God. A place that is said here, a kingdom, that, if you will, called heaven. The judge, the righteous judge, will give us. For there's a crown laying up, Paul wrote to Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 8, that the righteous judge shall give me, and not to me only, but to all them also that love his appearing. You see, Paul said, the Lord's going to prize me. The Lord's going to give me a gift. He's going to reward me with heaven. But not just to me, but he says to all of you. Heaven is a place of reward given to us at the end of life's struggles, at the end of life's way, as we hear the words, well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joys that are prepared for you. Come on in. It's all fine. It's all good. What a reward that will be. A reward that is given to us that is eternal, a reward that is matchless. But heaven's a place of rejoicing. Well done, good and faithful servant, was the promise made to the man that brought back 5 talents. Remember, he was given 5 talents and he brought back 5 more. You've been faithful over a few things, I'll make you servant over many. Do you remember the next words? Enter into the joy of the Lord. Rejoicing. Nobody's going to be sad in heaven. In Revelation 21 and verse 4, John reminds us, remember, he saw this vision on the Isle of Patmos. All of the book of Revelation is that vision. And part of it, Revelation 21 and part of Revelation 22 is what? It's talking about heaven. And John said, in heaven, there's not going to be more crying. There's not going to be more tears. There's not going to be more sorrow. There's not going to be more death. There's not going to be any more dying. There's not going to be any more of those things, for all of those things are passed away. All of those things are gone. They're no more. But then he promises that we can enter, and we can enter into the joy. You see, the things that make us sad in this world: death, drugstores, hospitals, nursing homes, taxes, the worries that we have of home, family, gone. No more. All of the cares and the anxieties that burden our life today passed away. They're no more. There's not going to be any more anxiety. There's not going to be any more worries. There's not going to be any more of those things, those hospitals and homes and things of that nature. All those things are gone. No more pain. We all wake up in the mornings with some sort of pain. Now, admittedly, when I was 20, I jumped out of bed. Now, I make a slow crawl. And I'm told that eventually it will even be slower, if at all. Yeah, that's true with all of us, isn't it? But heaven's a place of rejoicing because all that's gone. No more, no more. But the rejoicing of a better place, the rejoicing of a place that's much better than this world. Stories told of a lady that didn't have much. She worked all of her life. She worked hard, but she didn't have much. One day, she received news that someone in her family had died and left her a small fortune. She was proud of it, but she really didn't know what to do with it. Her friends and her family encouraged her. You've always lived in a little house that just, if the wind came up, it blew right through it. Get you a nice house. And so she got her a nice house. She lived in that house. She enjoyed that house. A few months passed. She began to not feel as well as she had. She went to the doctor. She was diagnosed with incurable cancer. A preacher went to see her. And as he talked to her, he said, you haven't had much in this world, but all of a sudden you've had a great fortune. Aren't you going to miss it? She said, no. She said, it's nice. I said, living in this house is nice. But I've got something nicer waiting for me, and I can't wait to get there. Rejoicing. Heaven is a place of rejoicing. But it's a place of reunion. Now, there's a thought. There's a thought that for some hurts, and for some a great joy. In the book of 2 Samuel, the 12th chapter, David has a son that dies. Up until that point in which he takes his last breath, he's sick, and David is in mourning. He's really already started his grief process, which is very real and very true. David, in many ways, has already started it. He's fasting, he's praying, and word comes that his son has died. What does he do? Well, if he's like most of us, he starts wailing harder, and he starts feeling the pain greater. Not David. David gets up, washes himself, cleans himself up, shaves to a degree. And there's astonishment. What in the world? Why is he acting this way? And David says, he shall not come to me, but I shall go to him. In other words, he says, we're going to be together. Not here on this life, but in the hereafter. It was Abraham that was said in the book of Genesis that when he died, he was of full age and he was gathered into his people. It was said of Isaac of the same thing, that he was gathered into his people. Some would say, well, preacher, the idea then of being gathered to your people, of having a reunion, means that we're going to recognize one another in heaven. I believe that. I believe the Bible teaches that. Story of rich man and Lazarus. They were able to recognize. Now, I realize that some would say, well, preacher, if I get there and so-and-so's not there, then I'm going to be just ravaged. No, you're not. Because God's going to be there. And there's no way you're going to be ravaged with God there. This place of reunion, though, if you stop and think about it, means that of all the righteous of all the years past, will be there. I think of all the folks that I've preached through the years, that I've tried to help them stay on course, live the life, be faithful, that hear the words, well done, will be there. I think of my sweet grandmama that was about, well, if grandma was 5 foot, she was, she might have been on her tiptoes. And she probably weighed, well, we won't get into her weight, but she was round. Let's just put it like that. And I think about her laughing. Grandma, be there. And I think about my mom and my daddy. My daddy was an elder in the church for, I don't know, I'd have to stop and think, many years, over 30. And he took it seriously. And he tried to live by the Bible the best he could to be with him. Now, my mother's a whole different choice. No. My mother, a godly lady. She obeyed the gospel. She went to church all of her life, but after she and Dad married, she started coming to church, so to speak. And she obeyed the gospel. A little later in life, but she was faithful. And I think, spend time with her. And I look forward to the fact that if my knothead son and his beautiful bride and my granddaughter will be there as well. And I'm pretty partial to that redhead sitting right there. And I kind of like having some time off every week, if it's not but a couple of 2-3 hours, to go somewhere with her, spend some time with her, and to spend eternity with her. For me, to not be able to recognize those people would be the greatest of tragedies. I think that the Bible teaches that we'll all be together. Those that have heard the words, well done. We studied in Bible school, in the auditorium class this morning, we studied Nehemiah chapter 1. In Nehemiah chapter 1, Nehemiah is mourning, if you will, for Israel. They had been taken back away into Babylonian captivity. They've come back now. But they've lost their way. They don't have good leadership. They've forgotten really why and what they were. And Nehemiah prays. And basically Nehemiah, as he in prayer, goes back to Leviticus 26. It says, we didn't do what we were supposed to do. And because we didn't do what we were supposed to do, you, God, did what you promised you would do. Now, here's what it was. God said, keep my commandments. If you don't, I'm going to scatter you. And Nehemiah basically says in his prayer, that's what happened. We didn't listen, we didn't follow, and you did what you said you were going to do. I want to go to heaven. And I want to be with those that I've known through the years and those that I've loved and those that I've spent time with. I want to be with you. And as we're together, spending eternity with those that we love, heaven will be heaven. So we ask ourselves, how long is eternity? How long is eternity? I honestly do not know. I have no clue. You've probably heard the sayings. If this world at planet Earth were a solid steel ball, and a giant eagle would come across this world every 10,000 years and spread its wing and just rub it one time, that by the time this old Earth was worn down to the size of eternity would just be beginning. Or you've heard it said, if every grain of sand upon this earth, if some bird would come and take it away to another place and only visit one every 1,000 years and take one grain with it, that eternity would just be beginning when it picked up all the grains of sand. That only helps us to understand this idea. Eternity never ends. Never ends. So, if man's life, according to what the psalmist tells us, if man's years are only 70 years, and if by reason of strength 80 years, then we're soon cut off and fly away. In other words, we soon die. I want to get ready. Because I want to be there. I want to see. I want to be. And I want to live with him eternally. And so we go back to a text that we've already used this morning. But remember the first words. Let not your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And whether I go, you know, and the way you know. Lord, we don't know. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. Are you ready? Are you ready to meet the Lord? Are you ready to go home? We don't know when that time will be, but we do know this. The promise of it is real. The promise of it will happen. All we have to do is to become a New Testament child of God, changing the direction of our life, confessing that we believe Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and being baptized so that our sins are washed away, and then living faithfully with him each and every day. To hear these words at the end of a life well lived, well done, good and faithful servant. Are you ready? If not, won't you come? All together we stand and sing.